I picked the couch. I dragged it in off the curb,
Yeah, no,
and
it's a nice condition couch. Yeah, no,
thanks.
I love what you did with the place. It's great.
And yeah, thanks so much for coming on the call. I appreciate having you on, and
Thanks, Sam.
I'm
Yeah,
excited
thanks
to
for
hear about
having
your
me.
project, and of course, how you're doing with all this COVID. Like, I think you're based out in New York, right? Are you based out in New York?
I'm in Milwaukee, actually.
Milwaukee was okay.
Yeah, Milwaukee. So right now it's 10 degrees. So, I mean, add in the pandemic, you really can't do anything, can't go anywhere, freeze to death if you don't get COVID. So, yeah, I mean, really just bunkering in and just staying active and trying to be as productive as I can with all the projects. And
Mhm.
yeah, that the project has been, it's been really exciting. We've been working on it. I think this is the 6th year. We've got to take to get to this point, and getting some interest. It's exciting. I really hope we can get somewhere with it this year.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. And it's not uncommon actually for me to see like producers come from like advertising backgrounds. I've seen a few examples of that being some sort of a pathway into TV, and it is because nowadays sometimes the productions on advertisements and stuff are so just big now. Some of them really are like almost like shooting a short film, like
Yeah,
it's short 5 minute films, or not even 5 minutes, like 30-second films. And you know so it's not out of the realm of the question to see why this medium has kind of spoken to you, and kind of been this labor of love, I guess, for the last few years. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, to your point. I mean, I was a graphic design major, and I got a job. I was fortunate to get a job right out of college at a music venue in Milwaukee called the Rave
Yep.
Eagles Club, and I worked there for 8 years. It was an awesome job.
Mm-hmm.
They worked with CAA on the West Coast,
Yes.
so we were getting into the office at like 10 o'clock, and then you finish your day at 6 o'clock, and
Sure.
you get to work with so many talented people. Even just you're promoting these shows, but uh, it was so much fun to learn, just design, print, but then you kind of evolve. I got to do like flashy cards for all the bands. And then I graduated, I was doing, After Effects for all the bands. We were doing these 30-second commercials. So that's really where I learned the majority of, where I am now, because I
Mhm.
was also taking night classes. I loved animation. I love 3D animation. I was taking night classes at MIAD, which is the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, and I was taking 3D rendering classes at MATC, which is the Milwaukee Area Technical College. So I was like learning all these different components which went into animation. I fell in love with it. I mean, I'm not that good of a as going to art school, and I studied abroad in Italy, taking like painting and printmaking, all the stuff you had to take for
That's
graphic
crazy.
design. But like, I don't draw that well, but I love design and animation, and that's a story that's very close to me because I actually grew up with that toy.
Hmm.
So like I have a personal connection to it, and it was just things started cascading and snowballing, and now I'm at the point of presenting it. So I'm really excited.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting project. Of course, we're talking about Jumbo Dreams. Anybody watching this can check it out on jumbodreams.com. It's really interesting. It really is kind of falling in that. We've seen some attempts at doing like adult animation and live action, kind of trying to merge a little bit. We've seen some mostly failures, but we're starting to see some wins
It's
here.
tough. It
Yeah.
is tough.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the amount of time just going into getting the characters, the rigging and all these things that go into it. I mean, you have the real world, and people who aren't familiar yet, we have the live action where we have the 3D, and the 3D's got to look good. Like you see and I've had some good, references like the Ted movies, the
Mhm.
Detective Pikachu movies. A lot of
Wow.
these movies now, like Sonic, they do it so well. And if you don't get the visual effects right, man, like it doesn't matter what your story is.
Yeah.
We saw what people were saying about the Sonic
The original
character.
Sonic.
Yeah, like you can't mess that stuff up. And I mean, we're very low, low level, obviously, but
Sure.
it's also inspired by a collection of toys from the 80s, and, you know, uh, the Jumbo Love collection. So that was really the inspiration behind it. And having the toy company all excited about our project and all the people that we have taken our idea to having, their support and enthusiasm. It's just inspired us further to just really do everything we can to make the project look world class.
Yeah, TV is a great. I mean, obviously, I'm not telling you anything that you haven't heard before. TV has always been a great conduit for selling toys. And I remember being a kid and watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and buying every single friggin' thing.
You had to have it. You had to have the pizza thrower. You had to have all that stuff.
You had to have them all. And if you didn't have them, you weren't cool. So
you were not cool. I mean, you could hurt people with that pizza thrower. I had 2 older brothers and older sister, and I had all this.
I had a younger brother, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we would love to get to that point where we could, have a coloring book. Right now it's the influence of superheroes is ubiquitous. It's a lot of so much influence from like the Marvel universe and DC universe. And I mean, I would wake up on Saturday mornings. I had like baseball or soccer games, and I would record on my VCR the X-Men animated series. I had to record it. I had to know what was going on because the story was just so awesome. And that was really a big influence of me. So, my story, you have this character who's not a superhero, but you have, he wants to be a superhero because, he's been influenced by the superheroes. But over the course of the story, you find that these little acts of kindness and just being empathetic towards others have these superhero impacts on people's lives. So that's what is really exciting. And I will say we're really excited about the component of the series where we could bring in like a different animator and make like these dream sequences be unique. Yeah. So I would love to get to that point, but a lot of work to do before then.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, like every studio you'll soon, if you don't know this already, you'll soon learn every studio kind of has like their the thing that they're known for, and then like, but they also have their brush that they're known for too. Like, stop motion, people think it's just stop motion. But when you really look at like Stupid Buddy Studios, who does Robot Chicken, and then you compare that to like stop motion that came from Star Wars Industry, which did Anomalisa, which was, it's both stop motion, but it's completely different, in terms of intricacy, different takes on how to approach the same problem. And same thing with drawing. I mean, all your hand drawing studios, everyone's got kind of like a different pathos, and you start to really, it really does become almost like you were talking about music before. It really almost becomes like you can recognize that voice, but exactly. You see it really type of a thing. And you do see that. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now, and you start to recognize, oh, that's a Sean Donnelly, or that's a Chris Bernowski, that's a LaShawn Thomas, that's from Seth Green's studio, that's from these guys' studios. And so, yeah, I mean, you see it, it's there. And then, as the appetite for animation has exponentially increased over, of course, the last year, it was doing that anyway. I think COVID just helped it. Yeah. It was already getting big, and then COVID just kind of came in and because of the limitation. I literally just got off a call with the producer of an Adult Swim series called Mr. Pickles, and they have another show called Mama Named Me Sheriff, and he was telling me how it took a couple days, but probably not much lost in terms of just getting, going to work and getting the show done and meeting deadlines and all that other stuff. So whereas live action stuff, guess what? Somebody catches COVID, the set has to shut down for a week. Yeah.
I know. I mean, like, that's what I would really get. I would love to get to the point of, we had the live action, per episode, but we bring in like a specialist, be like, hey, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, do you guys want to do a quick animated series? The South Park style? How cool would that be to work with all these different types of artists for these dream sequences? Because that's really where the series will shine, because I think that different variation will make it look really cool.
Yeah. And so, I mean, tell me a little bit about how did you know you wanted to make it a hybrid series? Like, did you have any thought of, let me just make this an entirely animated series, or let me do it entirely, I don't know what else.
It's just, I love animation. I love, I came up with this idea years ago, and I had friends, years ago saying, "Hey, make a choose your own adventure series or a film that you could use all these different types of animation in." But I just wanted the ability to feature all these different types of animation. I wanted to have like all these different styles incorporated. When I saw Spider-Verse,
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh man, this is so good. This is
that's it.
exactly what I wanted to do." Bringing in all those different styles of animation. It was so cool. And I'm like, oh man, you could have the story ongoing where you just kind of change up the look and feel, but you keep the real world, real. It's got to look great, 3D, so much work involved, but the amount of freedom you get by bringing in different voices and different artists to do those animated sequences could be spectacular.
Yeah, and I mean that movie I think has really kind of been a nice reset on even like like the kids animation world, because it's like before that it was everything was starting to kind of look the same, and everything was kind of everything, it just seemed like everybody went through every possible conceivable animal that they could possibly animate in CG.
Yeah,
And
pretty
then
much.
and then Spider-Man, when I first heard, oh, it's going to be a 3D CG, I'm like, oh man, it's going to look all cartoony, and how is it really that much different than the live action one? And but I mean, those guys really just blew everything out of the water, I think, that year, and was robbed from a best picture, I thought, nomination at least. And
I mean, I love Pixar movies. I
yes.
read Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, which was exceptional, great book.
Mhm.
But like the attention to detail that they put into that movie, the 30 frames per second, the 24 frames per second, the 12, how
Yes.
they adapt the animation to the level of experience that the characters had with their superpower. I mean, how clever is that?
That's
So
crazy.
creative, so
Yeah.
creative.
And then it's like, oh, of course, all the Easter eggs galore, which is already there, for a lot of your animated projects, and like they just really kind of amp that up a little. So it's definitely one of those movies you want to watch over and over and over again, and make
Hmm.
sure you caught everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you came to pass about about the live action character, and developing him, and what your goal was in making somebody that can reflect off of an animated character.
Yeah, I mean, I love visual effects. I got in when I was working at the Rave Eagles Club doing animation, kind of fooling around with 3D renderers. I was doing interior renders for the venue, and for other companies. I started doing things, and I fell in love with like 3D. I was working in like 3ds Max, uh, Maya. I was doing Cinema 4D. I was trying Houdini. I was trying all the different 3D applications. And what they won't tell you is just pick one. Just pick one and focus on, because there's like you can get pulled in so many different
Get
directions.
lost, yeah.
Yeah, but I started messing around doing modeling for a character. I was doing some other basic tutorials and at MATC, and then I just decided, I'm like, man, this would be so much fun to make a character. And what I decided to do is I have this stuffed animal, and I'm like, I'm going to make a 3D version of this character, because what I would do is, it's kind of an inside joke with my family. I would Photoshop these images of me and the character like hanging out, like playing cards or, drinking or something.
I saw that on your Instagram. You did a
Yeah.
lot of that. I see you like fist pounding them and
Yeah. I was like,
hanging out in the park.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the 3D render. Like I was messing around with a 3D render
Yeah.
at that point, and then I made this animatic of us working out. I have like a couple weights in my basement, so I have like a gym, and we're like working out together, and I have my like working out with me, and he's like pushing like the kettlebell over and stuff like that. So it was really fun for me to kind of, it was a test for my own ability to see how it could look and what it could feel like, and push my just try to learn something new. And I loved learning about rigging. Like I made the character, I'm like, okay, what's next? The rigging part, okay, have no idea how to do that. And I had a friend help me out. But then when I kind of got the character rigged and all set up with the matte shadow where you can incorporate it into an environment, then it really was fun, because I'm like, oh man, I could do all these different things. And that's what really sparked me to be like, all right, I got to put a story behind this. And I got a lot of positive feedback. I posted it on like Facebook like 5 years ago.
Sure.
They're like, you need to develop a story. And I love to tell stories. And that's something this story has been, you know, and it's been simmering for 5-6 years here. So
Yeah. And so, I mean, for the kids at home, tell everybody what rigging is and why was it so challenging, and what's the difference between, animating CG versus 2D as well, in terms of some of the intricacies that you have to kind of work with to make everything come out the way you want it to.
yeah, well, first of all, I didn't go to school for any kind of animation. It's
Right.
basic graphic design. So I had to pretty much teach myself after I went to a couple classes. But rigging involves creating like a bone system for a character. So it's one thing to develop a character where you model it and then you have to texture it. You also have to light it. But when you have the character ready to go and designed and modeled, then you have to apply a bone system to it. And in Maya, you can either do two different systems. There's the HK rig, which is like the human, or I don't even know what it is. It's like the HK or the IK versions, where when you have the skeleton developed, you can either choose to have the entire version of the skeleton animate, or you could like animate individual parts of the character. So yeah, and you can just go to YouTube and type in, rigging HK or IK Maya, and you can pretty much learn anything you want for free. So
do you find yourself doing that a lot, like going online and learning new things? Yeah.
I've done that for everything. I mean,
really?
I will say it's nice having an instructor sometimes, because they can just answer your question immediately. But if you don't have that luxury, if you can find a good channel on YouTube, there's a lot of value there. People who are passionate about Maya or Cinema 4D, those kind of 3D programs, or even After Effects, you can learn so much for free from those channels. And I mean, I had a graphic design degree, and I learned so much from my professors, but there's so much information that you can.
And not only that, but by the time you graduate, I'm sure some of the things, and this happens to everybody. As soon as you graduate, some of the things are kind of out of date. So you almost have to kind of reteach yourself things as time goes on. And I get it. And then of course, like one of my favorite things to do right now is I love Masterclass. And
I love Masterclass too. I love it.
I mean, I've watched so many so far. I've watched, Nancy Cartwright did a really great one on voice acting, and who better to learn from than her, doing The Simpsons for all those years. And so I love Masterclass. I love learning new things, even if it's something I've never really done before. I love learning new things, because then maybe it leads into something that I want to just try out, and maybe I like what the result is, and you kind of go down another path, and now before you know it, you got something else you got to do today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. Like, if I'm not learning something, I'm like, I have to be learning something new. Like, I love Masterclass. I did Neil Gaiman a while back.
It is too.
I was watching the Aaron Sorkin one. I did the advertising one. There was like Goldie or Goolsby or whatever. I just did the persuasion one, the sales. Daniel Pink, it's pretty cool.
Is that the FBI guy? Is that the FBI? They have a guy from the FBI.
No, he's like negotiations.
Yeah, negotiation skills.
Yeah, no, I think his name's Daniel Pink. I did his whole class. He just talks about ways of like persuading people, which could be good for me in my profession, because I'm always trying to sell people like creative and websites and stuff like that. So yeah,
that's interesting. I could have used you.
Oh yeah,
a couple times. Yeah.
What do you need? What did you need?
Oh, I mean, I'm always looking for refreshes, and I'm always looking for we're working on one right now, but I'm always kind of looking for refreshes and ideas, and hey, I'd do this, I would do this if I were you, sort of a thing.
Yeah,
I'm always looking for experts in the biz, different walks of life and stuff like that. So I mean, you're right. It's important to learn, and then of course you're in a medium where 6 years ago, maybe you didn't think there was going to be this many streaming services. It was still Netflix, I think, was still maybe in there. Maybe they were still just coming out of the, thinking of them as the disc delivery thing. And, then it became, the streaming service, and nobody really kind of paid attention to them, and they just kind of did their own thing, racked up all the subscribers, and here we are. Everybody's got a streamer now, and
COVID has
yeah,
accelerated everything. You have like the Paramount, you have the NBC Peacock, you have
yep.
all these different streaming options. And I think animation, especially my project, is poised to, I hope we can get our stories somewhere and there's an opportunity where we can, ongoing have content to create for somebody, because we've really worked hard on this thing. And it's interesting because people like me, I have in my story, I have a nod to Pixar because they were the first ones to create the animated film. So, spoiler alert: in the pilot episode, the character kind of comes back, and he's at this party. He comes home from like a really tough day, and he's at this party, and he's doing push-ups on top of a pizza box,
Hmm.
and they're counting his push-ups, and the pizza box is being held up by an astronaut and a cowboy.
Oh,
It's kind of a
very
nod to
cool.
Pixar. Thank you for everything that you guys did to help, hold up people like me to be able to tell a story the way I want to do, because the technology, the purveyor of, storytelling, everything that they've done to influence people like me is invaluable.
Yeah, yeah, that's, they kind of were the first ones to really break that mold. And for me, I'm also, loving where the growth of that industry is. We're starting to see like even like older skewing stuff that's starting to come out at CG. And so, but like you're right, I mean, it kind of all started with them. And but I mean, then every studio kind of got into it. Like everybody, I get pitches from China to like Canada to everything. All these, a lot of people ask me like, our focus is such that, we really kind of, the reason why we focus more on like adult type stuff, is because sometimes it's probably easier to trick a kid, kind of a thing, where they could kind of just take ideas, really copy and paste and move a couple pieces around. Pixar, I will give credit, they kind of always move that bar, but then there's so many others that don't care about where the bar is, they just want to make money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then so you get a whole influx of, I mean, I think every character has been, CG animated by now. Like I said, like every animal that you can think of has been CG
Pretty
animated by
much.
now and turned
Yeah.
into a talking something. We've been through all the birds, we've been through, everything. And it's just interesting that that it's still kind of going, but it's slowing a little bit in favor of, but at the same time, my niece is in love with Coco Melon. I mean, she loves it. Coco Melon on Netflix. If you have
Yeah.
anybody out there, have anybody that's a toddler, let me tell you something. She knows all her ABC. She knows her one, two, threes.
Yeah. I mean, they're powerful. Those projects.
Yeah.
I mean, Paw Patrol. I mean, geez, so many
Yes.
of those Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol. They're just forces of nature.
Sounds
Those are,
like you got little ones.
no, I don't. Not
Oh, you don't? Not yet?
not yet.
Oh,
Not yet. No, married, but
okay.
not yet. Not yet.
Nieces or nephews or anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that? Yeah.
nieces and a nephew, and they're
That's
they're a little bit older now. Yeah, they were my study group for this project early on, so they've been great. They've been great. So hopefully we can, yeah, get an opportunity to make this and incorporate all those little things that we love to do.
Sure, sure, yeah. Yeah, one more, and I'll let you go. But I mean, so what are some ideas that you have for upcoming for follow-up seasons? Like in terms of the actual structure of the show, you mentioned that you wanted to do kind of like the more hybrid live action CG, and then you have the animated component. It's like, what's the premise? What's causing him to go into these different animated worlds and go crazy?
Well, I mean, it's no, it's a great question. He lives this kind of boring life,
Hmm.
right? And he's not a superhero, but he kind of has a superhero ability, which is his imagination. And it takes him to all these different places because sometimes the reality is a bit harsher for him. He's missing one of his eyes,
Hmm. Hmm.
but he kind of draws himself differently because he sees himself differently, how he would want to be. And I mean, the story, we really try to bring you in. You know, one thing that Pixar does so well is they grab your heart and pull it out of your chest sometimes, and you feel so much for these characters. And that's what I'm trying to do with this, you know, this first season, where he goes through all these difficult things in his real life, but you escape to these amazing animated sequences where everything is just completely fantastical. And in a way, a lot of it's symbolic for him just trying to cope with things in his regular life. But he finds out, you know, these little things that he can do as a little guy make big changes in other people's lives. So, I mean, I could talk to you for hours about this, John, to be honest. It's just, yeah, right now, we just have it kind of drawn out for 2 seasons, but we want to build certain relationships. We want to have the opportunity to develop more of these characters and make the audience really feel for them and kind of what they're going through, and being empathetic towards the character. And
are there plans for more than one CG character? Like, do you want to do more than just?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has a love interest.
Okay.
Yeah, she's actually a little pink dog, and she runs her own cake delivery business. She's very successful in her cake delivery business. She does a lot of birthdays. And then he's got a neighbor who lives 2 doors down from him named Blueberry. Older, I think he's a dog as well. But yeah, we're incorporating a lot of these 3D characters into the real live action footage. It's more like more like a Pokemon. There's a lot. There's going to be more characters, but the thing is, 3D characters are so much. I mean, they cost a lot of money to make, and they take a lot of time. So
yes,
we're going to just kind of sprinkle them in as many as we can, maybe 5 or 6. But we would love the opportunity to be able to do more with this whole world.
Yeah, and from the sounds of it, it sounds like you got a lot of wheels moving, so that's great, and hopefully it gets into the right direction. That's awesome. So, all right, Brad, I'll let you go. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. JumboDreams.com, everybody, check it out. Brad Krawczyk, talking all things about the series, and hopefully we'll be seeing it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, John. Really appreciate it.
Brad. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Yep.